Okay, I think we're ready to get started. All right, hi everybody. We are over 50 right now in this call. My name is Benjamin Dada, and I'm super excited to be moderating this event. The event was put together by AfricaWorks in partnership with Business Insider Africa. The purpose of this event is very simple. We're trying to explore key questions and concerns around building a business from Africa and taking it global, right? And also some challenges some of our invited panelists have experienced, right, while trying to build a business in Africa. So to go forward, I'd like to introduce Akosua from the AfricaWorks team to just give us a bit more context about who AfricaWorks is and why they put this together.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. We're coming from Lagos, Nigeria, and we're really excited to launch this series called the AfricaWorks Insights webinar series. Essentially, what we do here at AfricaWorks is we are leading flexible workspace. We're currently located in 8 cities with 10 spaces across the continent, and we are expanding every day. So I have the privilege of being the marketing manager for a startup like this. And today we also have the honor of being around amazing entrepreneurs such as Hassan and Lucy and E, who will be sharing with us their journey to Silicon Valley, because we know that we're now a global city, we're now global, and we want to make sure we connect as much as possible. So I'll hand over to Benjamin to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akos, as I like to call you. So yes, Hassan and Lucy, I'm sure there are many people here that got to hear about this event through different means, right? Some of them are your contacts, some of them are people from Lagos. I'll just like you guys to take a few seconds to, talk about yourself and what you do, and we'll take it from there. So we'll start with you, Lucy, and then we'll go to Hassan.
Cool, thank you. Guys, it's a pleasure to be on the panel. So I'm Lucy. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer of Carry First. We're a mobile games publisher, which I'll explain in a second. A bit about me, I'm originally from New York. I started my career in investment banking in New York many years ago. And in 2012, knew I wanted to do something completely different. Found an entrepreneur in Cape Town and booked a one-way flight here and started my entrepreneurial journey. I've always been sort of attracted to founders, the vision that they have, the bravery that they have to do something that they believe should exist in the world and don't see. So it was my first time working with a founder, and it was an impact investing startup many years ago. I then worked for Fred Swaniker, who's a sort of serial entrepreneur in the education space, founded African Leadership Academy, African Leadership Group, and University. And then 3 years ago, my co-founder Cordell called me up and pitched me on the idea of launching Carry First. And that started my own journey as a founder. So Carry First, as a mobile games publisher, we essentially work with game studios that have great games and then help them scale into new markets, with a specific focus on helping big international studios that have amazing games that you can play on your phone, help them access consumers across Africa, focusing on how to message, market to them, and importantly, help consumers be able to buy in-game content by partnering with fintechs.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit about us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lucy. A lot to unpack there. And I'm sure the following questions will help us do just that. Hassan, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be part of this amazing panel. So I'm Hassan. I'm co-founder and CEO of DJAMO, a challenger bank for consumers in French-speaking Africa. We're focusing really on enabling financial agency for the underserved and connecting them to the financial system. So we started over a year ago in the Ivory Coast, where less than 22% of the population has access to banking, and less than 5% have access to formal borrowing. there are like 200 million people out there that are not able to use their money, protect their money, or able to grow their money like the rest of us. And we felt that was truly an unlocked potential. Not only they can't improve their financial life, but also all the entire economy cannot actually benefit it. So we want to open up that entire segment and make a win-win for all of us. So I'm born and raised in the Ivory Coast, but funnily enough, I built my first company in South America, in Peru and Colombia. So I sold this company to a Naspers company called Redbus, which is the largest online bus ticketing marketplace in the world. And when I came back to the Ivory Coast, I really experienced firsthand how the banking system was broken. And I had the opportunity to really interview directly all the people frustrated or without access to it, and to understand really their daily lives, how they use their money, and how they think about savings, how they prioritize their bills, and how they think about building their future.
All right, thank you so much, Hassan. Just to quickly pick up from where you left, what are some of the key insights you would like to share about the Ivory Coast ecosystem, but more broadly, the Francophone Africa ecosystem? So I'm from Lagos. We are seated within West Africa. You know, Nigeria has a large market, you know, regulatory compliance is strict and all of that. But, you know, to many people in West Africa and even other parts of Africa, the Francophone ecosystem is little known. So are there some, maybe your top 3 insights or some of the top 3 characteristics you'd like to share about the Ivorian ecosystem? And then everybody on the call can, you know, take notes and.
Yeah, I really think actually that the French Africa ecosystem is going to really emerge really strong in the next couple of years. So we were lacking till now some success stories, but this is about to change. I'm pretty sure you all heard about this huge round made by Wave Mobile Money. So I'm pretty confident that VC funding will start coming to fuel the local entrepreneurs because also that the demographic and market trends are extremely favorable. The second thing, if you want really to succeed in Francophone Africa, you really have to be more patient and more resilient than anywhere else on the continent. Companies here really try to build profitable business model very early on because of the lack of funding available, and because the scale obviously is less important. I think lastly also that you have very little talent available for the digital economy, and we really experienced that firsthand. You know, we really had to train a lot of people on these new roles like growth marketers or product teams and product design. So it's very important to have members that can wear different hats, and they can transfer the skills to other members of the teams and make them grow together.
All right, thank you so much, Hassan. But just for the benefit of the audience, our third panelist is running late and he will join us shortly. Thank you. So Lucy, I know like fintechs are like the hot thing, and I'm sure everybody here is wondering, okay, why would someone go and do a mobile gaming startup in 2021? You know, what do you think about the gaming space in Africa, and what are the opportunities there? Yeah.
Sure, great question, and it's one that I'm pretty familiar with. So we always say that when people get access to a smartphone, the first thing they want to do is talk with family and friends and be entertained, and that actually mobile games specifically are really sitting at the cross section of that. I think a lot of people now, the phone has become sort of like a primary instrument in our lives. And so mobile gaming as a result has exploded worldwide, right? Last year or this year, it's on track to be a $120 billion industry globally. So that's more than 2 times the size of movies and music. It's just a massive behemoth. It's not sort of this like niche industry that sits on the side that's only for 19-year-old boys in their basements, which is I think what people mostly think when they think about gamers. Gaming is ubiquitous, right? The typical gamer worldwide is a 45-year-old woman. and who loves Candy Crush. And so we think, as people get access to smartphones and get access to the internet, as there's investment in the underlying financial infrastructure and digital payments, investment in internet connectivity, that actually content is the best place to play, right? That actually serving users with content that makes sense, that's localized, that sort of meets preferences, is exactly where we wanted to play, and where we thought there was a big opportunity.
All right, thank you. I think I found it interesting that the typical gamer is a 45-year-old woman playing Candy Crush. Thanks for that insight. Okay, so back to Hassan again. When you think about Ivory Coast and you think about policies, right? Do you think the policies there enable innovation, or are there things you would like to fix about how policies are being developed for Ivory Coast and maybe Francophone Africa? You're on mute.
Yeah, my feeling is that French-speaking African countries are much more prudent. The officials are really cautious about innovations and take more time to introduce changes. But at the same time, this provides more stability to the economy. We have much less inflation and much more predictability. As a matter of example, if you take annual interest on loans, so that's in our vertical, here they are capped at 25%. Some will argue that this acts as a brake for financial inclusion because you will have, less players providing lending. But at the same time, customers are more protected and have less risk to be overwhelmed with debt. So this is the way, the French-speaking African countries behave in terms of regulations. I think they are maybe moving slowly. They can move much faster, but things are going to change for sure. And we know that all these officials are working towards it. The Ivory Coast is trying also to become the hub of French Africa. So a lot of things things are being done right now, and we believe that this will help in the next coming years.
All right, thank you so much. Ivory Coast as the hub of French Africa. Interesting. I always hear that there are so many similarities. So I'm thinking if I go build a startup in Ivory Coast, I can possibly serve about 9 more countries. Would that be the case?
No, actually, it's amusing how African startups always oversell Africa, as a single market, or even French-speaking Africa, because I don't believe that it's so easy to scale on all these countries, because there are a lot of nuances. I think there are 2 big regions. One is in Western Africa with the YMU, and then you have the CIMAC more in Central Africa, each one dominated by like a large country. You have Ivory Coast in Western Africa and Cameroon in Central Africa. But to think that you can, really scale as a single market across all these markets is a mistake. I think what we need to do is really, to target one of these large enough markets where we can potentially win this market, and before thinking about expanding. So that's, I think, a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs in French-speaking Africa also are doing. They are expanding too quickly. A lot of companies can be built, huge companies can be built out of a single country. If you look at Wave, they reached 2 billion valuation just with one single market, which is Senegal. So the idea is really to, especially culture and language can give you the impression that it's the same market, but it's not. And you have really to evaluate the nuances before, having your international strategy in place.
Thank you so much. I'm just happy that I can re-listen to this to this session. There's so much being said. Lucy, Carry First, right, raised about, I think, 9 million. Let me be sure, $6 million in May, right? And I'm sure, funding is something a lot of African startups are always thinking about, because generally you need capital to run a business, right?
Definitely.
How do you think African startups can position for both, local and global investment, right? We've seen Target, we've seen Tiger, many people looking into, Africa, but how do you think these startups should be positioning to, endear investments to them?
Sure. So a few things. I think one, there's no better time to be an African startup looking for funding, and it's part of the broader market right now. It's just a very, very hot market for startups. But I would say a few things. One, if you're just starting out, try and you don't have a network of international investors, try to apply for programs, contests that will up your international profile. I think YC is a great example. And there are some feeders into YC like Microtraction in Lagos who are doing a good job of pushing startups in that direction. There are entrepreneurial contests, like go and get your name out there, because you'll start to sort of increase your profile. And for people scouting for companies on the continent to invest in, it's a good way for them to find you. I would say the other thing about fundraising that's really important is to treat it like a process. Like anything else you do in your business, it's not something you can do on the side. It has to be a core focus for somebody on your team as you go into fundraising, and that it takes a lot of conversations. So for example, for our Series A that we closed earlier this year, we spoke to 101 investors over a 3-week period. We had the benefit of it being COVID, so we could take all of those calls from our living rooms instead of having to get on and travel to lots of different cities. But we had to speak to a lot of people, and most of those people will give you a no, but you only need one that gives you a yes for you to be able to start building around it. I think the mistake most entrepreneurs make is they put all of their eggs in one investor's basket, that they think, we have really good conversation, it was going really well, and then things fall through and you realize you've just spent 3 months kind of your time and attention. So treat it like a process, resource it like a process with your time and your attention and your energy, and speak to a lot of people.
All right, thank you very much, Lucy. Anyway, DJAMO was like the first Ivorian startup to get into YC. Hassan, do you have some specific application tips that startups applying to YC from Africa could take note of as they apply?
Yeah. So first of all, just to follow on at what Lucy said, after our pre-seed round, actually we felt like we were going to struggle a lot to raise more funds, not because we didn't have traction, but really because our market is not well known. So for us, it was really obvious from the beginning that the only way was to go through Y Combinator. And that will give us the exposure we need, to be able to raise funds. So we got in as the first fintech from Francophone Africa, and we have been able to raise just after demo day. That was really a launchpad for us, and we still, had to prove more than the other batchmates, because we had the best traction in our group at that time, but we haven't been able to raise the best round. Anyway, I think we still, gonna see a growing number of Francophone Africa startups going into YC in the next year. The YC application looks very simple, but it's not. You have to be very concise about what you're trying to solve, and that you have a very strong founders team. Francophone Africa entrepreneurs have to be more bold, I think, and sell better themselves and the market opportunity. So if you want these guys to really back you, you really need to stand off the crowd. My tip really for YC, and what really got us in, is you really need to show that you can hack things. So what got us into the first interview is that we launched a referral program even before launching the cards into the market, and that referral program became really viral. We onboarded like 50,000 signups in 1 month, and that gave us, I think, the chance to get the first interview. Now, the first interview, we totally screwed it. Actually, what saved us is one of the partners wanted to talk to us again after we launched the cards. So what we did, we called everybody we know, all our friends, families, anybody, and we started, selling cards to anybody, like going to companies, selling the cards ourselves, etc. And in 1 month, we issued like 2,000 cards, and that what really got us in, I think, into YC. So this is what these guys want to see. They want to see like fast execution, founders that can really do some great hacks. And you need really to be bold. So they're not gonna back a company that has not the potential to become a unicorn. So you have to really be very ambitious on what return you're trying to build.
Thank you so much, Hassan. That was very detailed. Okay, so Lucy, when it comes to the challenges people face when trying to start a game company, right? Especially because gaming is more agnostic, right? You can start a game here that, someone elsewhere doesn't even need to understand the language, but they can play it, right? So what barriers to entry do you see, right, that limits people from starting a gaming company from Africa?
Cool. So I think, there are a few different ways I think about that question. So what's cool now is anyone can develop a game using the tools that are available to them. And through Google Play and Apple, anyone can publish it and it can get to customers worldwide. And so the barriers to entry to create games and to put them into these stores are very, very low, right? You don't have to figure out distribution because basically the App Store giants have done it for you. But the key barrier to entry is being able to actually monetize that game and make a living from it. It's one thing to put in a game into a store, but it's another thing to understand, how do I make a game where people come back on the next day, the day after that, the 7th day, the 30th day, and a year from now, right? And a lot of science goes into actual long life games like Candy Crush, right? They have some of the biggest data science teams that you'll find of any company worldwide, because they can see, what do users do if we change the color? If the button isn't pulsating, do they actually press on it? And so there's a lot of science that goes into retaining users and to actually monetizing, making money from games, right? In free-to-play gaming, which is the world that we exist in, where you can download a game, you can play it, and if you want to get a special avatar, you'll pay for it. Or if you want to get 5 extra lives, you'll pay $1. In that world, there are only like 5% of players that ever even actually make a purchase. And so there's a lot of work that needs to go into actually figuring out how to make a game that makes money. And so as a publisher, our expertise is helping studios actually, with their games so that they can do that. And particularly for studios on the continent that we work with, it's helping them take a game that is entertaining and actually helping mature it, building those systems and make sure that they can scale it and make money from it globally.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lucy. I appreciate that. To the audience, there will be time for audience questions. I have 2 more questions, and then I'll open it up for the audience to send in their questions. But in the meantime, actually, you can just send a chat with your question in it. And after my set of questions, I'll throw it open. So Hassan, let's speak a little bit more about, incorporating as a startup or a company in, Ivory Coast or in French-speaking Africa, right? So I think that's also still a very unknown thing, right? What's the process? What are the steps? Is there, an agency I need to go and reserve a name with? Do I need to hire a lawyer, to do some XYZ things? How do you go about incorporating a startup in French-speaking parts of Africa? And I think this is going to be very useful for many founders looking to expand beyond their home countries?
Yeah, so in Ivory Coast, they have made a lot of efforts in the last years, to encourage entrepreneurships and promote new company creation. So you have a single desk where you can actually apply. The timeline is between 15 and 30 days. You can also go through a notary, and he can run the process for you. Or you can do it by yourself. I mean, it's not very complicated. You need to provide documents like, physical office, like electricity bill, your ID, and the bylaws, like very simple documents that you can get actually templates online. But yeah, the easiest way is to go through a notary. It's not so expensive. It's pretty, pretty straightforward with them. This is what we did, and at least you are sure that the company is created as it should. Yeah. Now, for the other Francophone Africa, at least in Western Africa, I think it's pretty similar because we are governed by the same, OWADA laws. So the bylaws and all other documents are pretty similar. So once you've done it in the Ivory Coast, I think you're going to be able to use the same kind of documents in the other countries.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much, Hassan. I hope if other people have questions, they can reach out to you for more details. My final question to Lucy, I would have asked you a similar question about expanding to South Africa and setting up a business there. Maybe I should actually. So, how do you advise people go about incorporating a business in South Africa? Especially many Nigerian companies are looking to move like their business operations elsewhere because of the regulatory landscape. So I think this would be very helpful.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have a very sophisticated and expansive corporate structure. We actually have a Mauritian entity. We have a US company, which is where we fundraise and all of the investment money comes into. We have a Mauritian entity, and then we have companies in Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa, and soon to be North Africa as well. I would say that when you're thinking about incorporating and thinking about what your sort of like company structure will be in the long run, if you are thinking about having sort of like a Pan-African operations, it's useful to get some advice at the beginning on how to best structure that, particularly where all of your IP sits. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you legal advice on this call, but we got really good advice in the beginning that would help us, set up our companies so that we could be sort of tax efficient and make sure that we could operate effectively in different countries. It's not easy. So at the same time, I would also say, like, spend a little bit of time on it to at least have a straw man, but like focus on one market. When we first got started with Carry First, we were even though we had like a pretty robust corporate structure, all of our focus was on Nigeria, right? I do think, to Hassan's point earlier, that like we all have these dreams of Pan-African expansion, but like it's really good to get product market fit in one market before you're trying to do that in 10. And every market requires a differentiated approach. So say, don't be too quick to go and say like, the grass is greener in South Africa. It has its own differences and challenges, and not always as easy.
Nice. Thank you very much. So I think people have a lot of questions around gaming, and I can understand why. It's not very often you find executives in the game industry coming out to do like webinars. So like the two questions here so far are literally at Lucy. Someone is asking, what trends have you noticed between internet data usage in Africa and the gaming industry?
Cool. So one of the things that we do know is that data usage grows faster year on year than, and like 55% growth every single year in data usage. And a lot of that's going into content, right? It's going into streaming, it's going into gaming. Chat doesn't take up a lot of data, right? But that's the other thing that we're all addicted to. And so it's a really good sign for gaming because it demonstrates a sort of appetite to engage with content on one's phone. So yeah, I would say that they're very much linked.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. There's one more question for gaming, but let's ask Hassan a question about, building a team during a remote first world, right? So, like someone posted something on Twitter that the number of jobs with remote in them have skyrocketed on Hacker News, right? So how are you able to hire talent or start with recruit talent, hire them, and manage talent in this post-COVID era? We call it PC. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just starting with that, JAMO. I think every startup on the continent has to start embracing these hybrid cultures now, because it's becoming the only way to survive with the tech talents were ahead of us. So we need to be able to compete seriously for global talent, and that comes through building strong company culture, provide equity to employees. That is something that that's not spread yet. And when you start mixing those different visions and skill sets, you start getting these outperforming teams where people actually are driven by the mission, more than the benefits of the job. So obviously some teams are more suited to remote work, like product teams or tech teams. So I would say that we're going to start with that. But that being said, I think that in Africa, you still have a lot of your teams which are going to be deployed on the ground, because a lot of effort has still to be done in building bridges, between offline and online. So except if you are a 100% digital player like Carry First, I think most of the companies will have, to really build hybrid cultures with some remote teams and some of the other teams that will be operating on the ground.
Yeah, I would say the key thing. Yeah, it's something I think about a lot. We have, I think, 31 employees in 18 different cities. So we're very remote and very distributed. And it's something I think about a lot. I think, one, to recruit people as the founder and as a leadership team, you need to be very clear in what your mission is and what it is that they're joining. And then once they do join, I think remote work makes it even more important to be clear around what the objectives are and what success looks like, and make sure that there's a lot of communication. You have to over communicate, because people aren't going to overhear you talking about some project you're working on and say, tell me more about that. What are we doing, right? You have to be like really intentional around communicating, repeating what you said 3 days ago, making sure it resonates. And I'd say the other part is being intentional around building culture, which is what Hassan said as well. We create now time in our days every single day just to hang out. It's like not about work. Every day it's a different prompt. It'll be something like, what is your superpower? Or if you could go anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you be? If you could travel back in time or forward in time, what would you choose? And you get to learn a lot about your teammates. And I think that's so important in building trust, because you can't build a company unless you trust the people you're working with.
Yes, I agree with you. I've also been in cases where, there's a calendar invite for just games and bonding, right? So we use platforms to do this kind of games, and just to make sure the team is not just work. But yes, over communicating would definitely help, because texting is often harder and context is lost. So you need to sort of repeat some things more often than not. I think for the both of you, and you can decide how to split it, I have a question on what do you think people get right about investing in Africa? And then I have a question on what do people get wrong about investing in Africa? So one person can take right, the other person can take wrong. Who wants to take right?
I'll take right.
Is that the easier one?
I don't know. I think what people get right is that there's a massive market opportunity, right? And that there's so much space for innovation. So like what people get right is being future oriented, right? Maybe right now, there was like one question about sort of like what a gamer looks like on the continent versus in San Francisco. They look very, very different. But I know that the market here is going to be massive and people are coming online. And so our investors who are taking a bet on Africa get it right when they're being like focused on the future and its potential.
All right, thanks. So Hassan, over to you. Wrong?
Yeah, so I think what's wrong is really to see Africa as a single country, you know. So a lot of them are saying like we are the I don't know, the stripe for Africa or anything that is, you know, combining all these countries in a same. So it's a very good way, you know, to raise funds to oversell, but the reality is really different. And I think investors are becoming smarter and smarter about it. So founders also have, you know, to adapt and be more realistic when they, you know, when they pitch their company.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question about your pick on the hottest African sectors to invest in right now and why. So each person can go 1-1 and then maybe we stop at 2-2. Yeah. So Lucy?
I think insurance is a really interesting space. There are some like massive insurance companies across the continent, but I think it's a really interesting space for tech disruption.
Okay, thank you. Insurance, then Hassan.
For me, it's going to be art. I think that is, you know, the main thing that Africa could have against the world, and to really, you know, build some global companies. So if you see what is happening right now with NFTs, there's also like a company in the Ivory Coast called AfricaWorks who sells you know, African art to the world. So these kind of things are really going to put us on a global map. Andela made a great job, you know, putting the African tech talent to the world. I think art is another thing that we need to leverage, because there are very creative people on the continent, and that could lead us, you know, to become one of the winner in that space.
I love that one, Hassan. That's a great one. I usually say like entertainment, but I think art is such an excellent one. Are we still going back and forth?
If you have one more, fine. If not, we move to the next.
You know, it's been like a hot sort of category for investing, but I still think logistics is really important for us to get right. Whether that's thinking about like large scale infrastructure and changes in investment in that, or last mile, I think there's just like there's a lot of innovation left in logistics.
Okay. And then Hassan, your final one, so it's balanced.
Yeah, well, I think infrastructural things, right? That's the main thing today is really to fintechs have done the first wave. Now it's going to be logistics and yeah, so really lay down the infrastructure to help other niche, other verticals to strive in the future.
All right, thanks guys. A few more and we're done. So Lucy, someone says for monetization, do game publishers need to be incorporated in all countries where their games are available?
No. So Google Play and Apple make it easy. You can basically publish your game and you can be incorporated in one place, and they'll just send you a check into that one company, and they do all of the work on the fact that they have customers everywhere. That's also why they justify their 30% fee. So for the most part, you don't need to have an entity set up in every place in which you're operating. The other option is to work with publishers like us who will do it for you. right? So we've enabled local payments in all of the different African countries outside of Google Play and Apple. For that, we needed to have all of these entities set up. And so, yeah, if you wanted to monetize your game specifically on the continent, you might need to, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's a lot of capital, and you should probably just work with us.
Nice one. Thank you, Lucy. For Hassan, as you think about, adding more team members, is there like a checklist you have or that you go through before saying, oh, I need to hire now?
So no, we don't have any restriction around it, but we really try to balance the number of men and women that we have. That is really important for tech companies, because you will have most of the tech guys being guys, so you really need to put a lot of effort on finding and try to always balance the gender rate in the company. So this is the only thing we are looking at right now. I think in the future, what we are trying to do is, now that we are becoming a more hybrid, is really to try to attract people from other emerging countries, not only developed countries, but because these guys face same challenges in other geographies. So it makes more sense, to have these guys on board than having people from developed countries. So yeah, that's the thing. But we don't have any secret sauce right now. It's so hard to find talent out there. So you don't need to be too much cautious about.
All right, thank you very much. There is one of my colleagues on the call that wants to ask a question. His name is Victor Oluwole. So he's from Business Insider Africa. So I'll pass it over to Victor. Victor, over to you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us for this webinar. On behalf of Business Insider and AfricaWorks, we just want to say thank you, and we hope you enjoyed a few short mini session that we have with these people, these experts, business experts. And just to cut straight to the point, my question for Hassan is, you're the founder of the first startup from Francophone Africa to be accepted into YC, right? And for so many other startups that are just looking to follow that trail, at what point does a startup need to start considering global expansion, or start considering, international expansion, or accepting like investment from YC and the likes? At what point should a startup founder start considering that move? For Lucy, during the point of explaining the gaming space and how it works, my question is around the monetization area, right? So for instance, for Candy Crush, foreigners, I know of foreigners that actually do pay for in-game, right? To either get more lives and all of that. But for Africans, I don't know how that market is, right? Do Africans actually pay, to actually play these games? And if yes, what are some of the things that some other startups in the gaming space can also adopt in order to actually increase their monetization revenue? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that with the late exits that we had, or the very good valuations of the companies from Nigeria, this has really created a network of angels in the continent. We literally received so many inbounds from African angel investors. So I think that the capital is not going to be the main problem in the future, at least the pre-seed or the seed capital. What's going to be much harder to get for these African companies is when you get into Series A, and for that you will really need to go abroad. There are very few VCs from only African footprint. I can think about only Telecom and Partech, who can lead your Series A. So you really need to be, to think global, to talk to international investors, and really give them what they need to become smart on your market, and convince them to invest. So I think these first stages are kind of being covered right now, but we need more of these African Series A's funds to be out there in the next couple of years.
Cool. And then hard pivot on how to monetize games. So it's a really good question, and the truth is that yes, consumers, gamers across Africa do pay for in-game content. Maybe not at the same rate that you'll find in the US or in Western Europe or in places like Japan or Korea, but people still want to buy in-game content and level up their experience. And I would say if you're thinking about how to better monetize your game, the key thing that you have to understand are who your gamers are and what motivates them. So for example, Candy Crush makes money because typically it knows that its gamers are generally middle-aged women. And let's just have a stereotype. They're sitting at the end of the day, they've maybe worked a job, they've taken care of the children, they've made dinner, everyone's gone to bed, and now it's their time to play Candy Crush, right? And Candy Crush knows this because they have all of this user data, and they sit down at the end of the day and they go through all of their lives, right? And they're like, no, this is my time to play Candy Crush. I still want to do one more shot at that level. And it's at that moment that they'll say, I could spend 50 cents on another life, right? So for King, who make Candy Crush, they understand that time is one of the biggest motivators that will drive that person to make a purchase. In Fortnite, it's persona, right? So they make money off of in-game content like cosmetics. You can buy a pair of Gucci sunglasses for your avatar in Fortnite, and because kids are spending half of their free time on Fortnite, having Gucci sunglasses on their avatar is like a flex for all of their friends. And Fortnite knows this, Epic knows this, so they invest in finding cooler, more interesting cosmetics to introduce into the game. On the continent, competition, sports betting is a massive industry. We're not in sports betting, but you think about the dynamics there around competition, a love for football, a love for the game, wanting to beat your friends. There are all sorts of ways to introduce different ways where like users are transacting or sharing currency or wagering currency within a game that allows them to compete with their friends. And that's part of like who that persona is. So for gamers who are making games, really try to understand who your customer is and what they will want to spend money on, and then build that.
Thank you so much, Lucy. There are two very important questions that I think we need to speak about before we do anything else. So someone is asking Hassan, particularly something called OHADA law, right? How do you compensate employees with maybe stock options or ESOP? Is that something you've already had to start doing, or when you probably plan to do that, how are you going to navigate that OHADA law, if I can call it that?
So actually, when you get into Y Combinator, you have to incorporate rather in the US, Canada, Singapore, or Cayman Islands, and we incorporated in the US. So actually, when we give ESOP, is through our parent company, which is in the US, and that is very common over there. So here to be honest, in Ivory Coast, we never try to cover this topic, because if we want to give ESOP, it's always going to be through the parent company.
Thank you very much, Hassan, for that. Spot on. So usually many people navigate all of these complex regulations by incorporating a place where the regulation is more known. So that Delaware and all. Nice. Okay, a question for Carrie first, right? And I thought about it. So part of my MSc, we did something around gamification. Have you guys considered, gamifying or offering gamification services to other startups or other industries?
No. So, one of the key things when you're a startup is understanding what you are not. And what we decided early on is that we were going to be a B2C company, right? That our customers were going to be, people that had phones in their hands, and not corporates who have lots of people that are offering gamification services. Gamification is an awesome way of engaging customers, but it's not a service that we're in because that's not our business.
I agree with you. And I feel like it might not be very revenue generating per se, because many people will just see it as as a cost or engagement booster. So things that will be revenue generating are things companies are more likely to pay for than things that just improve experiences across board. Gamification die.
Yeah, I know. I think you're onto something. I actually think that companies are really better understanding the power of gamification, right? I think, and that's why I think it's a brilliant question that you ask. A lot of corporates, you think there's a insurance provider in South Africa called Discovery. They've like gamified health to make their members healthier and therefore reduce their insurance payouts. And it's brilliant. And so I do think corporates are paying for it. It's just an entirely different business model, right? It's one where you're going after like big contracts with businesses, and actually for a lot of companies, there's the venture path, and the venture path says, we have to go raise a lot of money because one day we hope to be worth $1 billion or more. But not every company, not every entrepreneur has to actually have a startup, right? They could have a small business that they grow into a medium-sized business that employs, 50 or 100 people and never raise venture funding, which is also something I'd encourage people to think about. It's a brilliant way to start a business and to create jobs. It's just not the venture path.
Spot on. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucy. So I'm going to pass it over now to Akos from the AfricaWorks team, and then she should take us home from there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Thank you, Hassan and Lucy. It was really great to have you guys, and for the audience as well for tuning in. I think I learned quite a lot. Being part of an amazing founder, Greg Schreberg, who's not with us right now, but who has started this journey with AfricaWorks, and we're quickly expanding. It's really great to get the insights from you guys as well. We're really thankful for everybody who has joined, and we hope to see you for our next webinar. All right, then. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.